I've been using slate for house signs ever since I first started. It's a lovely material to use in almost all its forms. The one I've usually used is Welsh Slate. It's grey in colour. It varies between a kind of lightish grey and darkish grey, but usually it's fairly plain when you're looking at it. It's not figured much. It engraves beautifully. It is important that you know how to prepare slate. That will dictate the final coloration of the finished product. Here's 2 slabs of Welsh Slate that I bought in from the quarry direct. I buy mine on a pallet load. These are 60 by 30 slabs. The one on the left is 12mm thick and the one on the right is 25mm thick. And they're both clean and dry, and as you can see they vary in colour a fair bit. In this photograph I've wetted them both down just so you can see the colour a bit better. Just like any other stone, if you wet it the colour shows up more. And you can see that the left hand slab is not only darker, it's also more figured. It's a more mottled finish. Now what I find is that in practice, when you finish the stone, if you finish it correctly, that doesn't show up much. It just shows up as a very matte black finish. Now here I've allowed the slabs to halfway dry out, and you can see the difference between looking at them wet and looking at them dry. And if we have a closer look at the dry surface, you can see the mottling on the left hand one, and you can see how plain it is on the right hand version. And incidentally, on this image, if you look, you can see wheel marks. That's the wheel marks from the polishing straight from the place I got it from. That's fairly common. So you do not have to know how to prepare slate as well as how to finish it. I don't just use Welsh Slate, I also use many other slates on odd occasions. So let's have a look at a few of them. This is a piece of Brazilian green slate. The only way I can buy this is in 30 by 30 tiles. It's a lovely slate. The main thing with it is that you do have to seal it when you've finished, because otherwise it goes brown. I have also used Brazilian grey slate. It's actually a lovely slate. It's slightly different from Welsh Slate. There's a couple of jobs I've made in it. And if you look at it, it's more figured than Welsh Slate, generally speaking. It has a kind of marbling effect to it. It's really, really attractive though. The one thing with it is that it's harder than Welsh Slate, and therefore the preparation and the finishing can take a little bit longer. But apart from that, it really is a nice slate to work with. I just prefer the cachet of selling Welsh Slate. Everybody in Britain knows Welsh Slate. I have in the past tried to use Indian slate. This first piece is typical. It's very rough, and even when you find it sawn, it's not usually got a very good finish on it. You'll generally speaking find it in landscape supplies. They sell it as paving and patio paving, but I've actually given up on it for 2 really good reasons. Firstly, it can be incredibly hard, really difficult to work. And secondly, it's marked. It's quite often embedded with quartz lines, and these quartz lines make it impossible to sell to your customers. Every customer is going to think that quartz line is a break and repair. Even though it's natural, it's not worth getting into that kind of dispute with a customer. Simply forget Indian slate, unless you have a local supplier bringing in Indian slate that is beautifully polished. In that case, it might be worth considering. This is a typical piece of Westmoreland green slate, or Cumberland slate. I've never used it for house signs. I've never found a regular supplier, but it is a beautiful slate. And if you can find someone that will supply you with the green version, this is green slate, then it might be worth considering, especially if you live up near the Lake District. The other one I've never dealt with is Cornish grey slate or Cornish green slate. I think they also do a green slate. I just haven't found a supplier of that in any sensible way. But again, if you live in that part of the world, have a look around local stone stockists and see if they stock that particular slate, because it's always handy selling a local product. If you're in Cornwall and you project yourself as selling Cornish slate, that's a fairly strong selling point. Sometimes you come across problems with slate. One of the main problems is cracks. And if you look at the left-hand piece in this earlier shot we took, you'll see there's a line running along the bottom edge, and there's a crack. And the reason it's showing up is because I wetted the slate down and then allowed it to dry out. And as it's drying out, the crack holds the water. Because of that, you can see it. In this version, you can see a similar thing, but it's a very small crack on the edge of the slate, on the top edge of the slate. Again, spotting it by the same thing. Now, if you come across a crack in slate, simply cut around it, get rid of it. Don't think about using it. Don't think about repairing it. It just isn't worth it. In this last shot of cracks, you'll see a piece of Indian slate, in this case, with a crack in the edge. It's actually delaminating. As you may know, slate is a laminated kind of material, naturally laminated. And when the weather gets to the edge of it, it can split it and split it open. Now, you could try repairing a crack in the edge. I use super glue because super glue is really thin and it sort of creeps down and fills the crack up. But apart from that, don't bother with trying to repair cracks. So there we are, the wonderful world of slate. It's a material I like using, I enjoy using it. It can give you problems. It requires a certain amount of expertise to prepare the slate ready for engraving, and you have to finish it properly. And in the video on preparing slate and what have you, and making a slate house sign, I show you how to do that. But apart from that, it's very rewarding to do, and you can make some really beautiful signs out of it. I hope you've enjoyed watching this, and I hope it inspires you to hunt around your local stockists and suppliers for different types of slate. The best thing is to simply try them out and see how you get on.